One of the things that I think, one of the most memorable things you said to me is that finding truth is, finding truth is hard. It's not easy. And I think that in a whole range of arguments, and I see this as particularly relevant to a lot of the popular Roman Catholic apologetics, like, how is the common man supposed to know the truth? Well, we've got this magisterium here, and it's very obvious, what is and what isn't infallible. But the way that Scripture seems to frame things is it's designed to be difficult. It's something which is hidden. It's something which is buried in a field, so that you have to do some digging so that when you actually get it, you're going to treat it with value. It's something that you work to get. What would you say to somebody who is just considering becoming Orthodox? What advice would you give to them, practically speaking?
Well, I mean, that's just the perfect segue, because the thing I was thinking of was a quote from G.K. Chesterton, where Chesterton says to the effect, "I don't want to make more Christians, I want to make better Christians." And so in my personal life, I'm always on the lookout for people who have potential, who are good at something, or could be good at something, to be like, okay, that's the person I want to mentor so they can go and do this. I want Christians that are going to last, because, that's great that you're going to convert to whatever. I mean, the question is, you're going to last, right? Because, like, even if you're not stupid and you don't do practically stupid things in terms of getting yourself into legal trouble or other things, something bad's going to happen to you. Sooner or later, something bad's going to happen to you. Probably a lot of bad things are going to happen in your life, and you're going to have to manage them. So I'm always interested in trying to create people who are going to last, which is why I said earlier, in terms of identifying the different kinds of issues, like theoretical issues that are deal breakers, and then practical issues on what you can live with and what you can't. My goal is always to create people who have a kind of solidity, that they end up having these kind of considered judgments, that have considered all the data to the best of their ability, their educational level, and all of those things. I don't think everybody has to be or can be a walking academic or things like this. But I do think that, look, you and I are in the Western world. We're in the United States, where a lot of people are college educated. They have more access to information now, and better information now, than they ever could have. I mean, I'm old enough to remember going to the card catalog, in the library. I mean, that's what I did. You want to go look up a book on cults or the Trinity? Well, you got to go look in the card catalog. And yet you have people who know less. It's easier now than ever it was before. And they're using social media and other things as kind of a shortcut. And those things are fine as a tool, but there's a big difference. There are things you're going to learn reading better quality literature and better books. And there are things you're going to learn, like in a graduate seminar, that you're never going to learn on your own, that you're going to learn from somebody who's been doing this their whole life. You also learn some really good jokes from your professors every once in a while. But there are just things you learn: how to write, how to speak well, how to think through things, how to construct an argument, all these kinds of things, how to think more clearly. Your vocabulary increases. There's just a whole number of things. So I'm interested in creating people who last in the church. And given our socio-cultural moment in the United States right now, with all the anxiety and agitation, I think that's very important. For myself, I'm at a point in my life where most of my real questions have been answered. I'm satisfied. I'm content. Every once in a while, something will come up, but in terms of the issues that I set out to answer, I'm content. And I've worked through. Here's another thing. You're going to run into intellectual roadblocks or speed bumps, and they're going to be very disconcerting or unsettling for you. I'm at the other end of that, where I've worked through, and Seraphim, you've worked through plenty of these kinds of things. Like when you come across a new one, you're just like, yeah, I'll put that on the shelf. I'll order some books about it. I'll get to that in maybe 3 or 4 years. You know, a big whoop-de-doo, I can't answer this atheist at this particular moment. Okay, that's not the end of the world. I'm not worried about it. And one of the reasons is because you work through all of those things. And then the other thing is, look, you know this in academia. You go to a colloquia where some professor of Rumpty-Foo is giving a paper, and it may be some big, you know, philosopher, theologian, historian, and they get their butt kicked or something in the colloquia, let's say. Well, they don't give up their whole worldview or their whole position just because they ran into a bunch of objections from their peers. They're like, oh, back to the drawing board, and they'll work on that problem for another 10 years until they come up with an argument or a position that gets around all of those objections. They just don't give up. So, you know, this is just to Christians in general, I would say this. You know, if you're dealing with atheists or objectors from other religions like Islam and things like this, you have to have tenacity. You have to be a bulldog. You have to hold on. Because number one, if even, let's say you say, oh, I can't handle why God allows evil, I'm not going to be a Christian anymore, blah, 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 blah. And you go be an atheist. Okay, yes, now you're an atheist. Okay, there's still evil in the world. You still have to explain it. You still have to deal with it. You still have to come up with some philosophical and ethical theory that accounts for it. You're still going to have to do meta-ethics. You're still going to have to do normative ethics, all of those things. The problem doesn't go away. You just moved it from one worldview to the other. So you have to have a kind of tenacity, whatever you're going to believe. So here I'm trying to shift from, it's important what you believe, but it's also important how you come to the beliefs that you have. And you need to look at your procedures for that. And you need to be very introspective and think, am I pushing this position away because I don't like it, or because I have a good argument against it? And so in some way, you get to a point where you stop controlling the ideas and the ideas start controlling you. And that's kind of scary territory, right? And that's when you know you're being more intellectually honest. So like one of my best friends, probably my best friend in the world, when we were much younger, we would spar theologically and do a lot of street witnessing and stuff together. We investigated a lot of stuff like about apostolic succession together. And we were reading certain stuff, and we were Reformed at the time, and we were trying to come up with arguments against it. But then both of us started becoming convinced. And it was like, well, we don't want to believe this, but this is such a good argument, right? And then you have to role play. You have to put yourself in the other person's position. Like, how would I answer their objection to my objection? And you know, all of that is a very important part of critical thinking. But if you're going to be intellectually honest and you want the truth, that's the kind of work you're going to need to do, which is why you need to take your time. You need to read the best literature that you can handle. If you understand everything that you're reading, you need to read something else. Because you're not going to grow. The average high school textbook is written at a 5th to 6th grade reading level now. Okay? And most popular fiction and nonfiction that people read is at around a 6th, 7th grade reading level. If that's what you're reading, you're not going to grow very much. You need to push yourself. You need to read stuff that's hard. Oh, I don't understand what that word means. Well, good Lord, we have a phone that has dictionary on it. And look it up. Get off your butt and look up what the word means. Right? So I would say people, the biggest thing is take your time. Take a few years. Read, study, visit other churches, other Orthodox churches. Make a list of things you don't like. Talk to your priest about the things you don't like. Think about what you can live with, what you can't. You know, and you can't think of either the priest or anybody like me online or anything like, you can't think of them as your life fulfillment coach. And, you know, this is one reason why I don't really talk about it. I don't have a conversion story yet. I think probably what I told you is probably the most extensive thing in terms of conversion that I've ever discussed. One, because I may not make it. I may not be a Christian to the end of my life. You don't know that. I don't know that. Right? I hope so, but I don't know that. So I'm not a Jesus replacement or a guru for you. And the other thing is, I'm not interested in somebody who's newly minted. That's great. God bless them. Love them dearly. Well, I want to hear about conversion stories, so to speak, for people at the end of their life, right before they die. Like, okay, you're pretty much there. What did you learn along the way? And that's why the lives of the saints are important, right? You see what people learned and their foibles all along the way.
Have you ever read that article on becoming and remaining an Orthodox Christian? Do you know the one I'm referring to?
It rings a bell. If I have, I don't remember it.
Yeah, it kind of says the same thing. I forget who wrote it. I think it was originally a talk. It said, you know, the stories about how you became an Orthodox Christian, that's great, but I think the really interesting ones are how you remained an Orthodox Christian. And, you know, it's 2021 now, so I started consistently going to an Orthodox church 12 years ago now. And honestly, I remember there was in particular a gentleman who his conversion story involved going through literally every Christian tradition I'd ever heard of before. And he was coming to Orthodox and he had this box full of icons he just bought, and then he kind of disappeared one day, and then 7 years later he appeared again, and he kind of made the circulation again. But that's sort of an extreme example of what I've seen a lot of, which is for many people, Orthodoxy is tragically kind of the last stop out the door of Christianity. And
it can be, but my experience has been that it's not going to solve their problem. Moving like that is not going to solve their problem.